All right, team, welcome back to After Hours. Zcash is making us wealthy, and price has gone from $15 to $375 within 15.8 months. And we're all getting rich here. News is flooding in. We're seeing Arthur Hayes come out giving his $10,000 Zcash prediction, and a notable crypto CEO coming out saying Zcash is a better Bitcoin. All this news flooding in with this Zcash price performance that has been parabolic, and everyone's talking about Zcash now. And we're here to talk about Zcash today on the show. This is the first time on After Hours, probably since early 2024. We have not brought it up to you guys on this show regularly, like done like a thumbnail and a title and spent, 10, 15 minutes on Zcash. Matt has spent plenty amounts of times on the Ask Matty show and has been in depth covered on the Crypto Charge live show and on the platform within the Discord. Everyone here that is watching this show today, Matt, should be in the know about Zcash. We did make everyone aware here. Hey, no one was interested when we covered Zcash, so we're just going to stop talking about it. We're going to talk about XRP. We're going to talk about HBAR. We're going to talk about Casper, API 3, all the other ones. But we're just going to be done talking about Zcash. We have brought it up within the charting sessions and all the other sessions, the questions that you guys ask on Matt's show. But on today's show, Matt, we're going to discuss it. And I think it's very important that we do so, because everyone goes to a crypto influencer, or they call him like a guru, to find out how they can make money specifically within crypto. And I could say I've never been more confident than today, because with today, Matt, we saw Crypto Charge members take profit at TP1 this past weekend. And the reward on that, go into the reward on that. And maybe, I guess, you could be transparent and lead that into your CC Shill. But what did you see out of Crypto Charge members this weekend, and what's Zcash doing for us?
Yeah, so I'm, of course, just overjoyed to see people taking profits and finding some success. And, we have, obviously, everyone's invested different amounts in our group. And I always encourage everyone through our consistent investor strategy to invest with a budget you can afford. And, I think a lot of people have really understood what that means over time. So, of course, some people saw well over six figures in profit taking on this TP1, and some people took, a little bit less. But nonetheless, just seeing some of the things that people were addressing was just their very first take profit, whether it's, so one of our members paid off their mortgage today with their Zcash profits. And, some other people were able to pay off big amounts of debt that they've had that have been revolving on credit cards at 30%. These are huge wins. And I think a lot of people look at the word life-changing money and they're like, oh, if I don't make $5 million, it's not life-changing money. No, these are huge milestones that make your life exponentially better. So for me, this really fills my heart with a lot of joy. I know that there's been a long road of holding this, of us trying to, like you mentioned at the top there, convincing people when we were kind of at that ultimate value opportunity that really the risk to reward was exponential and just not the sexiest vehicle as far as some of the other competitors out there. Really excellent to see. Again, all of this information was presented on the Crypto Charge live show that we do Monday through Friday, covering Zcash every single day. It's still on the master watch list. Obviously, we're not recommending buys at this very moment, but it's still on the master watch list. It's been covered every day in the coin library. Everything we talked about, this 350 target, has been laid out in that coin library with analysis that supports that, updated on a regular basis. Longer term charts, about once a month or so, they get updated there. But really, guys, this stuff is not super complicated, and we try to, at cryptocharge.com, make it as simple as possible for you guys, with the Discord, with the live updates Monday through Friday, with our written summaries that come out, the Daily Edge every single day, news, and that all comes with a 30-day free trial and $49 a month with code YouTube. So, you missed Zcash, you did, and that sucks. But I promise you, I have at least 4 or 5 other really good quality opportunities for you guys right now that are still cooking, that are offering excellent risk to reward, and gives you a lot of flexibility on the way up. You don't have to chase the Zcashes out there. But again, incredibly overwhelmed and overjoyed with the success of our members, and kind of all sharing some of their journey in our Discord there today, and seeing that profit taking. That's what it's all about, right? That's what all the hard work is for, is all the sacrifices for, is for enjoying this moment and really just relishing in it.
Yeah, we're going to relish in it a little bit today. We're not going to overdo it, team. So this isn't going to be 21, 25 minutes of saying, I told you so. There is going to be some real value here. We're going to talk a little bit briefly about our Zcash profits. Arthur Hayes came out and gave a prediction, a Zcash prediction. We're going to go to the charts, and then at the end, we'll kind of answer maybe some of the beginner questions, or maybe some of the intermediate questions that you might have about Zcash itself, it being a privacy token. Is this a good investment right now? What other options outside of this investment within privacy or options outside of Zcash or privacy in general, some of the ones we've been talking about. Zcash is a crypto that Matt and I both hold. It is a token that I could just say here is going to make me super wealthy, or has just made me super wealthy. There is a little bit of difference though. I have taken 2 TPs on my Zcash. When I laid out my take profit strategy, I stuck to it to a T within the bear market. I did not deviate. I sold at 193 and I sold at 172 this weekend. So I got like, not 172, 373 this weekend on Sunday. I was literally just met a member this weekend on Sunday. And it just so happens that we're taking TP2 yesterday. And so that was very exciting to see. So I've already taken 2 TPs on my Zcash. And let's just give a little bit of background, because there is some lessons to be learned here. We're not going to, sit on this topic forever, but there is some lessons to be learned here that you can kind of use for your personal investing here. That's going to be a lot of this show for you guys here today. So when I bought Zcash in July of 2024. That was the absolute bottom of when you could have bought Zcash of all time. It wicked down, like on the Kraken chart, it wicked down all the way to $15. I bought Zcash at $18, and I was also DCAing Zcash. So my cost basis on Zcash is between $18 and $22. And so up to my first take profit, that is a 9x on my money. Into TP2, that is a 20x on my money. So the multiplier there is pretty big, let's just say, right? And so, for example, if you invested $50,000 into Zcash just last year, you would have expected to have in dollars worth today $1 million, which is pretty crazy. And so when we're discussing Zcash here, the strategy employed here, one of the key fundamentals here is trying to buy at those lows, Matt. And so that's kind of what happened with me. I saw the opportunity. I took advantage of it. Can you share, give the show a little bit what you made? We don't do this very often, Matt. Can you tell a little bit of the people here what your profit taking was like this weekend?
Yeah, so this is the first TP. So 350 was the first TP that we had laid out. When we kind of saw Zcash, kind of crunching down with those lows, we adjusted that TP1 to be 350. It was both the 2021 high, so you had a retrace in 2021 in May, where you got out to roughly $370, $350, and then there was also a Fibonacci supported target there. Again, I had been buying Zcash prior to that final dip, so I had obviously had some Zcash purchases that were higher there. One of the most important things, though, is that we talk about the consistent investor strategy. You can go watch on our website. You guys use that 30-day free trial. Go at least watch this video. It's going to kind of really outline everything we're talking about here from a more macro level. Is that there's lots of different ways you can deploy in this market. You can do a dollar cost average, where Coinbase or whatever will do either a daily, weekly DCA, monthly DCA, whatever it is. We obviously really kind of lean towards the daily to capitalize on the volatility. And then there's limit-based ordering. And then in both of those scenarios, though, whatever you choose for your monthly budget, or whatever the budget is that works for you for the way that you earn income, about 25% of that should be set aside in stable coins. And again, the reason for that is because you earn yield on those, might as well at least earn something on them while they're not doing anything. So when you do see the opportunities like we saw, where Zcash was already at those lows, right? We had seen some wick sensitivity in 2020 and 2017 in very similar fashions around that low $20 mark. Again, also was looking at some other data where we looked at the average cost of early seed investors into Zcash, and they kind of were in that like $14 to $25 region. So there was a pretty big incentive to defend those lows in there as well. Really attack that as much as I heavily could with those stable coins, and lowered my average pretty significantly. So, cumulative, right, probably sitting around, I think it was like $24, $25 there on Zcash. I realized roughly like a 13.5x here cumulatively so far on that first chunk. Now, again, I still have a good chunk of my bag in the market. I sold 35% of my Zcash position there at that 350 mark. So I still have an enormous position in the market. But the most important part of what I did here was I removed my initial investment from the market. I paid myself back. That is the most crucial step in your TP1. A lot of people will be like, oh, I'll take 10% at TP1 because I'm so confident in TPs 2 and 3. No, right? Like, we've done a good job scaling in. I just talked about how scary and important it was to, really try to just get on that low that was produced, that was providing an amazing opportunity to lower average significantly to make this trade one of the most asymmetrical trades that we had on the table. It's obviously not the most asymmetrical anymore. we have to make sure that we're protecting the trade on the other side of that as well. So have plenty of exposure when I think that Zcash will still get out to some of our higher targets. I think we'll hit 4-figure Zcash this cycle. I think that's a very big reality that's still in front of us. But doing this process and sticking to it emotionlessly is super crucial. A lot of people have, even in our group, who have been here for a long time, they're like, I actually struggled with the sell button today, right? Like I struggled actually getting the order in and hitting sell. And that is a reality, right? When things are that bullish, you're like, but what if I'm wrong? What if it goes to $700? What if it goes to $900? What if everything gets really, really crazy? What if it does, right? So that's the whole goal of managing your risk and selling certain parts as you go. But we have our spreadsheet in the Discord where you guys can download that and adjust all the different percentages. Look what that schedule would look like. You guys should already have a painted picture before we get to these targets of like estimated profits. What would that look like if I miss TPs 2 and 3 and only fill TP 1? You don't want to be figuring that out when we're here around 350. That's not a conversation you want to be having yourself now. That's when you get into the project and start developing that. So again, planning the trade, trading the plan, that's really what it comes down to.
Zcash was punished by the larger crypto collective because it's an older coin. It is a digital asset that is like Bitcoin. So some would say, why don't you just buy Bitcoin instead? It has a Bitcoin model. It has no influencers. It doesn't have a show. And so when you take all of those things that people would expect to see in 2025 by a crypto project, people just would throw Zcash to the side. I was telling Matt before the show, I was flipping through Decrypt and they posted no Zcash news articles within the last couple of years. Their last Zcash article was in 2022. And within the run up in price right now they're starting to cover Zcash. Do you see how that turns around? You see how people, the mainstream media, will kind of flip their mindset. And it's like, oh, wow, this is performing well. Let's talk about it. It's never when it's not doing well when people want to talk about it, right? And so it really wasn't getting that push. The reason it captured our attention was its value proposition, the privacy. It takes autonomy a step further than what Bitcoin offers, because with Zcash, you get shielded transactions, right? And so this is a part of controversy that has risen within the last couple of years in relation to privacy. You can talk about protocols like Tornado Cash that was heavily scrutinized. You can talk about coins like XMR, which is Monero, heavily criticized because even XMR, or let's just say Monero here. Monero takes privacy a little step further even than Zcash. What Zcash does is it is like Bitcoin. It is a proof of work network, but it does give you the option for privacy. And so with the privacy with Zcash, it's with the sender, the receiver, the amount, and you can transact like you would in the real world. And so we're bringing that into the digital sphere. Now, if you're interacting with Zcash and you're trying to maintain privacy with the right wallet and the right settings, and you're incorporating a Binance exchange, I guess you can kind of see how that's not private anymore, right? Because with Binance, you do KYC. They are meeting the AML requirements. So when you bring decentralized finance and you bring these cryptos that you're trying to use privacy for, and you bring them into the TradFi side of crypto, you're not going to be able to maintain that privacy, right? So, even exchanges have delisted privacy coins. I think we covered last year, Zcash got delisted on a not too notable exchange because of the privacy aspect of it. And with some exchanges, the privacy, they just don't allow you to send with shielded addresses. And so that's a little bit of background about Zcash right now. The coin itself, if you want to have privacy with Zcash, it's with the right wallet, with the right settings. Other than that, it's just like any other digital asset. So don't freak out like it's like a coin that's going to have federal agencies come knocking on your door, like the financial crime network's going to come after you. I do have to say, though, I did look into it because this is something that kind of piqued my interest, because it wasn't up until today where I'd ever think about sending more than $10,000 worth of Zcash with a shielded address. But if you do, I do believe the financial crimes network will come after you, and they will try to, because you can't just send money digitally like that over the internet. So they will track you, and so they will see that leave your bank account. And if they don't see where that's going, you could be scrutinized. Now, That isn't to say if we all did it, like all of us are going to get taken down. Yeah, there might be some unique people that get to move and transact like that. But at the end of the day, your bank account shows that $10,000 was removed from that bank account. And so you will have to account for that. And so I just did want to kind of give that background for maybe some newbies that aren't quite familiar with Zcash. And the privacy side of crypto, that's not really talked about a lot. What we've been covering this year, Matt, is TradFi, is stablecoin adoption, is, Ripple buying new companies, is all these, tokenization, adoption. And so we very rarely talk about this very niche vertical within crypto that is privacy. That is actually super cool and beneficial for regular transactions, but you're not going to be able to move $1 million of Zcash around with shielded addresses. Matt, I did want to point that out. Is there anything you want to say about that before we get into Arthur Hayes' prediction here?
It is true though. And I would say that as time goes on in the IRS, unfortunately, we'll get more funding and more tools to be able to do like blockchain forensics and DLT forensics. It's going to be more difficult to, evade the obligations you have of either AML practices, money laundering, taxing, whatever the case may be. I will say that just from a speculative, component and something that I've thought about, right? If you do have these assets like Zcash that have the shielded transactions and, ZK snarks, and now with the Halo 2 protocol, like no longer, multi-party for trusted setups, a lot of value. You're probably going to start to see a lot of cold wallets that have never touched a bank account before pop up with Zcash balances, and those accounts getting sold for probably a lot more than they're worth because it's truly unassociated money that you can transact with, for all kinds of maybe services, whether they're legal or not. So again, it's never my business what people do with their assets when they get to them, right? Whether it's a metal, whether it's a crypto asset, whatever it is. But I think that there's going to continue to be long-term value in a network like this, especially when you pair it with something like a self-custody solution. I had a conversation actually locally here in Temecula, I think it was about 1.5 years ago, with this guy who was just over the top, over the moon about Pirate Chain. And it's a little bit of a different scenario, and it definitely operates very differently. And the cold devices they use do not support any other assets besides Pirate Chain. So there are like even other levels to privacy as a whole. So if you guys are interested in privacy, understand that it's a spectrum of privacy, and a lot of these models are attacking it very differently. Zcash was like perfect middle of the road for me. I love where we're at with it from a fundamental mechanism. We still have lots of Zcash that can be mined. If you guys want to mine Zcash, it is a possibility for you guys to do that. And of course, cost is obviously a lot higher now, but I'm very bullish on the privacy sector long term. If you also look at the applications of privacy, you can still have even government institutions or other types of institutions that use these privacy coins for internal treasury management, a variety of other things, to maintain privacy between sister companies or whatever it might be, for separation there. So there's a lot of use cases beyond just like, oh, nobody can see what the details of the transaction were. There's a lot of like applications that actually can be used when it comes to privacy.
Let's discuss Arthur Hayes, because he's coming out with a little prediction here. Arthur Hayes' $10,000 Zcash call sparks crypto-wide FOMO, but can Zcash price hold the hype? This is a Yahoo news article I'm reading right now. First time we're reading a Yahoo news article on the show. The Zcash ZEC price has surged by more than 750% in the past 3 months, with token holders gaining over 20% in the last 24 hours. It follows a recent post from Arthur Hayes after the BitMEX co-founder and former CEO called a $10,000 price target for Zcash, the powering token for the Zcash ecosystem. So we've covered Arthur Hayes in the past. No, none of his price targets have been founded. He is a popular CEO within the industry. And so when a popular CEO puts out his prediction, it's going to be covered. I did want to talk about this turnaround in optimism that we kind of discussed in the earlier parts of this show, where, we see price get going and then all of a sudden there's a flip the switch. So with my first initial reaction, I was like, oh, Arthur Hayes put out a prediction. This can't be his first Zcash prediction, right? He must have talked about Zcash in the past. And then, of course, Matt, I go to the internet and there is nothing on the internet with Arthur Hayes and Zcash. Nothing pops up. Now, I don't trust mainstream media to cover Arthur Hayes discussing Zcash because, as we've talked about, Zcash is not a popular crypto. It is not going to take the big attention from media outlets and bloggers to go then report on it. They're not going to do that. Now they're going to report on it because there's some hype there. Price is doing well. It's gaining attention online. So now it will be covered, but it wasn't covered in the past. So maybe Arthur Hayes talked about it in the past, maybe not, but there is nothing that pops up for me online. And I really do, Matt used to talk about this when I was in college. Matt would always bring up, he's like, I just feel as though when people make price predictions, it's what they want to happen. It's what they truly want to happen within that asset. They make that prediction so that it will come true and that they can believe their own mind. Like, yeah, Zcash at $10,000 this bull run. Yeah, I believe that. And now I'm going to tell everyone else. And I got to say, this is the first instance I've seen this in the mainstream media, because what he's doing with his $10,000 Zcash, Matt, this price prediction, is he's taking what we've already done within Zcash price, and he's like, okay, I want that ROI that just happened in Zcash. Right. What price is going to give me that? $10,000. That's what will give me that ROI that just happened. And so this was the first instance where I'm like, hey, Matt might be onto something there. That might be true. And so I saw that. I was like, sure enough. And so no Zcash coverage from him in the past. And so even if he did, I don't trust the media to cover it. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and said, you know what, maybe he is a Zcash bull like the Winklevoss twins. And maybe he's somewhere in the lower parts of the internet said something about a prediction. But, I guess outside of us, because we've talked about Zcash, we did step away from it for, I think, valid reasons. We're trying to get views here. We're trying to bring people to the website, and we're trying to cover valuable information that is going to bring in that viewership. Zcash wasn't one of them. So I guess you could say we fell victim to that as well. But no, there was no interest there. But even within our conversation, within our XRP shows, our API 3 shows, whatever it was, we still maintained Zcash. You guys knew what we held in our portfolio, and we just took profit on Zcash. Matt, I did want to talk about this with you. So he's throwing out $10,000 price point for Zcash, right? And is this possible? Let's just go with that.
I mean, anything's possible. You made a good point, though, of what I had really harped on earlier in reverse engineering TPs to fit what you want to make, right? It's more about laying out, looking at the charts, laying at the different points of interest, and then you can tinker with percentages of sales that you want to do with, how much you're going to sell at each target to try to achieve those goals and kind of, see what that looks like. But again, a lot of people will just reverse engineer that. We'll take a look at the charts and we'll look at a few Fibonacci ranges where maybe these numbers come out of. But on CoinMarketCap, this is, again, where I really want you guys to start with your research, and you're like, is this possible? Like, there's some metrics here that you need to look at off the bat. So off the top here, you see market cap is currently $5.6 billion, which is crazy considering that we are well under $1 billion when we were buying Zcash. Total supply, 21 million, is going to be just like Bitcoin. Same model we had our halving in November of last year for Zcash, and I think 1.5 or 1.6 Zcash per block now. So it's a much smaller block, and of course, in not this November, but in 3 Novembers from now, we'll see another halving where that reward will become even smaller. So you have that deflationary effect. However, most important part is going to be that circulating supply. So right now there's like 16.2 million circulating right now. That means actively available. That's how much is out there. So you would need to see $170 billion market cap in order for that to be achieved. Now, it's not the craziest amount of money that I've seen required for some of these market caps, especially being some of the older coins, some of the developed, but it is a lot of money in order to see those prices. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the chart, though, and let's do a little bit of analysis. Now we're probably excited to look at the chart before everyone's like, get this the hell off my screen. It is what it is. One of the things, again, that I just could not take my eyes off of, especially when I saw this roundedness in here, I'm like, that is a classic cup and handle all day long. And it took a long time for this cup to come to fruition, but you guys can see that's crystal clear here. The one thing that I will say is that generally when these cups finish up, is you will see sometimes like a corrective handle that comes in. If we do get that corrective handle and we come down all the way towards, let's say, like even the $80 region, you guys might get an opportunity to like join in from a swing trade perspective. I'm not going to harp on this as the same opportunity as it was when it was like, hey, multi-year low, compression structure, just like 2013 through 2017. I made that comparison a million times, and it's finally coming to fruition here. We can also see that there was just a crazy big area of support in here. This is why we threw the kitchen sink, and it's not that assets can't make new lows. We've seen it happen, but when you know that you're near those multi-year lows, you have managed to mitigate as much risk as possible. Yes, stuff can break into new lows, but wouldn't you rather buy the low that you see in front of you instead of buying after you've seen confirmation that we're making a clean uptrend and you've now taking multiple X's off the table, it eventually is what happens. You guys can also see here that I pointed to for a very long time this multi-year compression structure in here. And I said, when you get these long bases like this and these long compression structures, generally when you do get that breakout, it's a violent breakout, a horribly, horribly violent breakout. And you guys can see how intense that breakout's been. So, since we really started this big impulsive wave in here, we did about 500% about 30 days. So you spend most of your time in crypto in these compressive, corrective, accumulative structures. That is the reality of it. And boredom is what kicks people out of the market. People will walk away because they're bored. They don't get that dopamine hit, that serotonin flush. They don't get those things, so they walk away from the market. But that is unfortunately where the money is made, is just being consistent with that. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. In fact, you can have a lot less money in the bear market and be very effective. You have to have a lot more money in the bull market to be just as effective as you were in the bear. So really sticking to a budget, even if, let's say, me and my husband, me and my whatever, we can, do $100 a month. Yeah, me and my husband, right? Yeah, sorry, I've been meaning to tell you guys, it's a big lifestyle change for me here. Anyway, me and my partner are going to be putting aside $100 a month, and that's what we can afford consistently. Great. That's $1,200 a year. Like, that is a meaningful amount of money in the bear market. You'd put $1,200 into Zcash, and let's say your average have been close to $35 here, right? 35 and currently up. You guys would still be up 820% from that $35 average. So there's crazy opportunity. Now let's go ahead and come down to a slightly higher time frame here, or come up to a slightly higher time frame. You guys see everything that's happening here on the chart, so I'm just going to take all this away, and we're going to go from a couple different Fibonacci ranges. So I never want to use this crap up here. There is a wick on the Zcash aggregated chart. This suggests a $29,000, almost $30,000 Zcash. But what do we see immediately after that? Just nonsensical selling, no catch points, here on the 3-day chart, no bounces of any kind in here, just straight capitulative selling. Anytime I see this on any asset, and I truly do this on any asset, I don't include that as a Fibonacci range. Where do we see that first liquid high that came in? And ignore, again, this is just craziness in here. This is just wicking. You see roughly $900 as the actual high in here. So in my eyes, $900 is the registered all-time high for Zcash. You guys can see back here in 2021, we basically came in where we are with current pricing, right around $350, $370. That's also a valid high we can use because we have two different lows that we can use in here. So let's compare a couple ranges. So let's go from the $900 high. You guys can see the 2020 low in there would be relatively coordinated with where we see price currently. If we drag it down to the ultimate low in here, still pretty damn close. So that 382 Fibonacci retracement level was a supported level. So not only was the previous high in here, but when we had this low that came in here, that's when I adjusted and downgraded our first target, just so that we were adjusting for the new ROI that was being basically baked in here. We said this is a supported target, both support and resistance as well as retracement wise. And on top of that, again, have most of my team having a sub $30 average, being upwards of a 10x. Let's take some 10x off the table. It makes a lot of sense to me. Now, when we look further up into the sequence here, you guys looking at some of these numbers, we're looking at around $1,400 as our next big target. Now, some of my team is looking at, different areas of interest here. They're looking at the other retracements. Again, everyone has a different risk appetite, different amount invested, different goals. So they know how to use these tools to accommodate TP schedules that make sense for them. So some of them are going to be taking profits along the way into these retracements. But our next big area is around 1,400s. That's the 1.618. That's what we use for most of our target making. That's where I'm going to be mostly out. If we get to a $1,400 price point, I'm going to be mostly out of Zcash, like 99% out of Zcash at that point. We do have extensions beyond this here, but that puts us closer to, almost 4K, 3,200. Those are a little bit loftier, right? Those require much bigger overall market capitalizations. When you look deeper into the sequence, from the big range we selected here, we get 7,000 and then 11,500. Those are going to be the two next big targets beyond our 4.236. Now, let's also bring in here, and let's bring in our more recent range. So go from the current high here down to the low that was up in there. And let's see, do we get 10,000 as a Fibonacci number here? No, we get 7,600, we get 12,300, and we get 19 as those next big areas of interest. So, a lot of times, especially when you see these just like big, round, robust numbers, they've done it with XRP, they've done it with a bunch of other stuff. They really are just pulled out of nowhere. There's no any rhyme or reason for it. It's just a nice round number. Nobody wants to say, hey, I think that Zcash is going to $1,323, right? Like that's not a fun conversation to have. That's not going to make its way around the internet. You get a nice big 5-digit number like 10,000. People feel good about that. And I think that there also is this weird asphyxiation and fascination with just big numbers as a whole. And that doesn't mean ROI, right? Assets that are 2 or 3 pennies can yield much bigger rewards than assets that are at 100K, 200K. I think people forget how to calculate the ROI and they get so sucked up on the numbers and they don't mean anything, right? Zcash here is a bigger reward at $300 something and Solana will be at $1,200. So it is what it is. It's all about ROI and capitalizing on things when they're at their lows.
Right. Matt, some quick thoughts here. So I would imagine there is some new individuals here that are watching this show and they're just hearing about Zcash, maybe for the first time. And so I wanted to discuss getting in now on Zcash. You alluded it, on that chart right there. I did want to discuss that. Someone may want to get into Zcash right now. Is that possible in this bull run, do you think?
I think there is an opportunity to join the trend that's intact, but it's going to require patience and a dedication to allocating at that level and no higher. Because when you look at these big breakouts, right, the whole idea of anyone who thinks after they look at a breakout is like, if I join in the trend, there's going to be enough momentum to get me out of another 2-3x from this, right? There's enough momentum to get me a quick buck. When you start to make those assumptions, that's generally when the investment goes sideways almost instantly. So in this particular chart where we're looking at here, there are areas of imbalance. And those are always going to be the areas that we watch to get filled, watch for that entry, watch for that addition, whatever it might be. And that's going to be right around like $78, $80. That would be the absolute minimum that I would need to see retested in order to say, you know what, you're giving yourself an okay risk reward ratio. Because at that point, right, we're going from our bigger range in there, we're going from the ultimate swing high, ultimate swing low. We see around $1,400 up there. You get in around 78. We get out to that 1.618. That is up for of a 17x opportunity. However, you get in from current market and everything goes perfectly well, goes straight to 1,400. It's roughly a 300% move. So really, really big difference ROI there. And when you're this overextended, it really just never makes sense to enter. I've done the same thing with XRP. I've done the same thing with any other asset that has a huge boom like this. Foot off the gas. There's no reason to chase that asset that's already extended really, really heavily. You can see it go further, right? And you might say, oh, well, it's got another 20 or 30%. Could also correct 40, 50%. We've seen API 3 pop off the same way. We've seen Casper pop off the same way. Rallies can get given back. And especially when you get a clean breakout like this, it should be the expectation is that you're going to get some sort of retest. So, maybe Zcash does go higher this cycle and, we get out further to some of these targets before we fill out the $78, $80 bounty, and you might miss that trade. And that is a reality. When you decide to join a market that's already in progress of a breakout like this, you don't get the same level of just blanket purchasing, blanket DCA, I'm going to buy and I'm going to get out to these next targets. There becomes additional risk doing that versus being in the bear market and doing that DCA. So minimum, I'm going to tell you guys, is like $70 to $80 is where I would like to see price come back down to. In a perfect world, we'd fill the imbalance around $50. That's probably not realistic until we get back down into some sort of crazy bearish territory. We'll see what ends up coming. But yeah, please never buy big green candles. That's our biggest mantra at Crypto Charters, that make you guys do the Boy Scout honor, and we don't buy big green candles. And when you do it, that's 100% on you. No alligator tears in the Discord. That's for you to deal with on your own time.
Let's end with this, right? So we got heavily criticized in the bear market. Most people said we would never see these price targets. We would never see our assets pop off. We weren't buying the shiny new stuff of the 2024, 2025 bull run. We wouldn't see it come through for us. Last year, we saw XRP and HBAR pop off. The altcoin market started getting going. Now we're seeing Zcash pop off. Here's what it is, guys. You guys have to be putting yourself in the best position possible and put all of the probabilities in your favor. And on my watch list, that's with Casper and API 3 right now. All right. And I know we've been talking about these two specific assets for a long time. Casper is an L1, API 3 is an Oracle. These are two cryptos that are heavily overlooked right now, okay? I don't want to say that, hey, I've been right before. We've sat on the show and we've been right. Here we go. We've been right with XRP, been right with HBAR, been right with Zcash. Just follow whatever we do. Criticize our methods, not what we're necessarily I don't know what would be a good. I was trying to come up with like a banger like quote for that. I was
guess what we're investing in it as a whole, right? Like it is crazy to me that a lot of you guys will like really everything in my portfolio is legitimate, right? And Gavin's as well. Like let everything in there provide some sort of actual proprietary value. And then there's people in the comments who will have 30-40% meme exposure, and they're like, "That's not a good coin. Nobody's gonna buy that anymore." And I'm like, why are we even having this conversation? Like we're not cut from the same cloth. And I think it just comes down to being focused on analytics. That's really all it comes down to, guys, is being married to the analytics and not married to the market or married to your assets themselves. When you make that dedication and your focus there, it's a lot easier to strip the emotion out, make decisions that are mathematically sound, and then just keep repeating the process. Guess what? Zcash TP1 is out. Look how many other assets that haven't rotated yet. The rotation that we've been talking about, the rotational opportunities we've been talking about, now are going to allow us to compound these gains. Oh, you sold too early. No, I didn't. I'm about to recompound this motherfucker into some other smaller assets that have yet to pop off yet. So highly, highly encourage you guys to get locked in with us at cryptocharge.com. Check out our coin library, which has so many opportunities for you guys to join in on, where we have, hey, here's where the dollar cost average limit is. Anything below this is a good deal. Hey, if we get down to this price, this is where I set a limit based order. We give you guys the easy button on top of covering the assets Monday through Friday. So you guys don't have to spend all this time like we do doing this full time for the last 4 years, researching, doing all of this, analytics on a regular basis. You guys could just lock into the show once a day for 20 minutes and you guys are done. That's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. So, again, there's a million ways to skin a cat. We're not the absolute 100% perfect analysts in the market. There's lots of other people there that I think are very smart and do very well for themselves and provide a lot of value out there. But I think as far as consistency and us not shying away when things have gotten tough, whether it's with Casper or XRP, or people not necessarily loving the Zcash idea, being steadfast, right, in those convictions has really been the biggest takeaway for us. Last thing I'm going to show you guys really quickly here is I actually posted this in our Discord in February of last year. So February of 2024. I posted this in here because I wasn't frustrated with the team. I just could not understand why they weren't grasping the opportunity the way I was presenting it. So I did a little overview, like what is Zcash? What about these delistings that are happening right now? What about the regulatory concerns because the EU was wanting to ban it, right? And then it was like, should I invest in Zcash? And I didn't get overly robust in here, but I was like, these are the multi-year lows. Here's like the minimum upside, even if you don't care about this as like a super long-term trade. Like, I'm happy with my other bags. This is where I'm putting my attention right now. And a lot of people took this to heart, and a lot of people made a lot of money because they just saw the simplified vision of it. So again, you can sometimes have trades that don't plan out, and that is okay. So diversification, the way you diversify, the way you make your additions when you are diversified, there's a lot of layers to it. It's not super complicated, but it's all about being kinetic and practicing and just sticking to it over and over again, even when it sometimes feels like the wrong thing to do.
I'm super excited for you guys. I'm eager to hear in the comment section what you guys have done with your Zcash. I'm eager to hear, what your bull run is looking like so far. So if you're having great times, if it's going to be negative, I don't want to hear anything negative, all right? I don't want to hear you guys should have done this or that or done more Zcash videos. Hey, we did the best job we could with Zcash. We tried to cover it as much as you guys would allow us. You guys didn't want to show up for that. You're going to see a lot of Crypto Charge members in the comments. They'll be like, yeah, well, we were talking about this all the time. This was a common topic in the Discord. You just saw Matt pull up his little write-up he did last year. That's so funny. It's so funny that you had to do that. And now look at today, where now we're seeing the news roll in with Zcash, and everyone couldn't be more happier to buy Zcash. Everyone couldn't be more happy to report on Zcash. It's just kind of crazy how things change when price gets going. So team, if you want to buy the assets that no one's talking about, you got to become a Crypto Charge member. Matt talked about that this week. Matt's doing a show on Wednesday, and Matt's going to be doing also a little live session. So if you want to look at other privacy coins, bring up XMR, bring up Pirate Train, bring up some of the other options that are out there, and maybe Matt will cover them. But Matt, I think that's all we have for today, team. We'll see you next time. Bye.